And just like that, we are live on the internet, following the greatest medley in the history of medleys, the most wonderful melody of all melodies. Um, Maybe the single greatest arrangement of musical notes in the history of time.
Could very well be.
Beethoven and Bach could never. That's just exclusively, you know, there's levels. And yeah. How you doing, Rich?
I'm stressed.
I'm sorry. I know you are. I don't know
Yeah.
what to do for you.
What was that?
I don't know what I can do for you.
You're doing it.
I've already sponsored your book, so
Yes, you have. So,
mm.
no, like I said, you're doing it. So, now it's getting other people to do it. So, I guess we're jumping right in.
Yeah. What's on your mind, Rich?
So, I wrote a book, and
it's a great book.
Thank you.
It's a terrific book. Yeah.
The book that technically doesn't exist yet because it still needs to be illustrated. Although the story's out there, and the story, of course, has been out there for a while, which you'd seen a while ago because I had the animation done 4 years ago now. And I realized I've been sitting on this story for almost 7. So I had the story laid out 7 years ago. So I'm going to backtrack. Let me backtrack here. 8 years ago, I wrote my first children's book, which was A Little Respect Cultivates Kindness, which I had that story literally popped into my brain while I was in Berlin, Germany on a family trip. And we were thinking about what we could do to replace the Superman Reese logo because I was told that it was a copyright infringement. And I was concerned about lawsuits and things like that. And couldn't come up with something. And my wife had suggested, why don't we make Reese a farmer because he loved tractors. And he called tractors Tracta. So I said, that's it. He'll be riding a little tractor named Tracta, dressed as a farmer. And that was it. And I sent it to my friend Adam, who's a graphic artist. And I said, can you do this? And he goes, but what's the context? And I'm like, oh, I don't know. Like, that's true. Like, why is he dressed as a farmer? Like Superman, superhero, it's just like that kind of just makes sense, right? Like, what does a farmer mean? So that literally that night in Berlin, I'm contacting back and forth with my friend, and Samantha and I are brainstorming together, and she goes, "Well, what if he's spreading kindness?" And I'm like, "Well, he's the seeds of kindness. That's what he's doing. He's helping them to grow. He's growing seeds of kindness." And I'm like, "Grow kindness." Spread kindness, no. And then Samantha's like, cultivate kindness. And I'm like, oh, that's it. So we're like, that'll be the motto. And it fits perfectly with what we're doing. So we had a new logo made up and a new kind of catchphrase, cultivate kindness. And so Adam developed this logo for us that had Reese on a tractor and cultivate kindness. And like, okay, this is perfect. This way I don't have to worry about any copyrights because it's ours. And then I released that actually. So it's kind of mirroring the experience I'm having right now. I had released that on his Angel Day. It was on his second Angel Day on October 27th. It was 8 years ago. And we released the new logo and people were like, oh, it's great, you know. And I realized there was a story in there of Reese like spreading these seeds of kindness, and I was like, wow, okay, he's spreading these seeds, and then each person helps the seed to grow, which is kind of a parallel of our story of, you know, giving out one card and then that card got passed on and it just kept growing. And the teacher in me is always thinking about the thing I always did really well as a teacher, and my kids always pointed this out, was I always was able to relate things into terms that they could understand. Like complex things into things that they could easily understand. And so I did that with our story. Like, how do I relate what we did without hitting little kids over the head with the tragedy, but still get the point across? And the little farmer Reese was perfect, that he's spreading the seed of kindness, and that kindness will only grow if you do the things to help cultivate it. And in this case, it's not water, it's not soil, it's not the sun, it's more kindness. And then, you know, and then just kindness perpetuates. And then the end of the book was perfect because his name, Richt Specht, right? Richt Specht is treating others the way you want to be treated. Well, Richt, of course, starts the book off treating someone with kindness. At the end of the book, he gets treated with kindness in return, and then makes the connection that it all started with him. So, like, boom, perfect. The story was self-contained. I wrote the story, and then I realized how expensive it was to actually illustrate a children's book, especially one that was as long as mine. So it was longer than your average children's book. And printing costs and everything. So we did a crowdfunding campaign in 2014 to raise the money to get it printed and illustrated. And we raised over $21,000 and got the book printed, got it illustrated, had 5,000 copies printed, sold through those first 5,000 copies in the first year pretty quickly. And then in the time since, we've sold, I've ordered 16,000 books and I have 136 left. So we've sold, over 15,000 copies of the original book. And I had an idea for the new story after speaking to schools and sharing the book with the schools I was speaking to. A lot of schools were asking me, do you do anti-bullying presentations? And I always hated that term. As a teacher, it drove me crazy. As a scientist, it drove me crazy because I hate double negatives. So if you're anti something negative, like, I just hated that. Like, and then it also bothered me because I was like, why are we giving all the credit to the bullies? Because if you're trying to stop the bully, then you already let the problem happen. What do we do to prevent the bullies? What do we do to what's the prophylaxis for it? And I realized kindness was. So I would tell schools that, which was kind of just my little pitch to them. No, I don't do bullying prevention. I don't do anti-bullying because I prevent bullying in the first place. So that was always a little catch. And then I realized that wasn't quite enough for some schools because they wanted something more proactive. And I said, well, what happens? I was thinking again as a scientist, because honestly, when I wrote the first book, it was science. It was action, reaction, right? And so for this one, I'm like, what happens when two opposite things come together? They neutralize, right? So I was like, there's my idea. Little respect stops a bully. And so I ran with this idea of the opposites. So we had Reese, a little boy who spreads the seeds of kindness, versus Mr. Grumpeten, the older man who rides a tractor named Grifta, which that was very much intentional. Instead of tractor, Grifta, and a grifter, we all know someone who takes advantage of someone. And Reese is doing his thing, spreading those seeds of kindness, but Mr. Grumpeten is out spreading the weeds of bad deeds. Everywhere he goes, these weeds continue to grow because he keeps doing the opposite of what Reese does. And at the climax, Reese and Mr. Grumpeten cross paths.
They engage in mortal combat.
Yes, they engage in lethal combat. And he performs his fatality. Yeah. No, I'm just kidding. And we see that power of kindness is enough to stop the bully. Yeah. And then on top of that, actually, Mr. Grumpeten, in his race to catch up with Reese and stop him, overloads or overheats his tractor Grifta, who breaks down. And basically, in the animation, which I love, he basically like explodes, which the kids, every time they see the animation and they see this cloud of smoke and like, oh my God, the tractor blew up. And then, of course, you see him afterwards and he's just broken down. But Mr. Grumpeten, being who he is, being a bully, starts to bully his own friend and says, you're useless if you can't do this. I'm done with you. And he kicks him and he walks away. And then Reese, being the kind boy, says, I'll fix you. And he comes over and he fixes Grifta. And after he fixes Grifta actually is crying, tears of joy, so happy. And the little R in his license plate falls off. And now it says Gifta, more positivity. And and then the moral of the story is that the end line of the book is that the seeds for both, so either those weeds or the seeds of kindness, are in your heart. This much you now know. Your actions, both good and bad, can cause flowers or weeds to grow, which is reinforcing this thing that I tell kids all the time, is that you have a choice. You have a choice as to how you treat people. That choice is up to you, because you've got both right here. And whichever one you decide to grow is the one that will. And so we had animation done for that. So I had that story outline written probably in 2016. Actually, I just found I had a Facebook post. Like, 'cause I love this about Facebook memories.
Yeah, that's the best part.
It really is, because it just, like, I just, sometimes they're good. They can be bittersweet. I just got one from 10 years ago, which was my first, when I was able to get a cell signal. I had posted a picture of Reese, and it was November 1st of 2012. And so I saw it today, and I looked at what I wrote, and I'm like, oh my God. So so it can be bittersweet sometimes, but it's been mostly fantastic to have that. And I had just gotten one not too long ago that reminded me that I'd written the manuscript for this book back in 2016. So it was 2 years after the first book. And then in 2018, I had talked with an animator about getting an animated version of it to use in my shows, because I wanted to have that bullying connection, and what I truly believe, that kindness is the way you prevent it. And that was finished the end of 2018. And that we could have never gotten that done, by the way, without Kind Snacks. So Kind Snacks, we had won a competition with Kind Snacks to it was a video we did that was, what's the difference between being nice and kind, and we won a $25,000 grant from them, and we put it all into that animation. And which was weird, because I had an animated version of a book I hadn't actually printed yet, but it worked. And I figured, okay, I'll do the book. But then I got involved with potentially doing an animated series, and so everything, it just kept going on the back burner. And I kept having in my head how hard it is to raise this money on a crowdfunding campaign, and that you're just constantly working at it, because you got to get people to buy in, to donate. They're basically buying a book that doesn't exist yet. And the other thing is, a lot of people don't understand it. I'm shocked at how many people don't understand what crowdfunding actually is. So my own mother, who I actually was at my house, I was trying to explain it to her. She goes, I still don't get it. And I'm like, Mom, what don't you understand?
It's panhandling.
What? Yeah. I was like, I'm asking people to support my vision, as I have a vision of a book. The book is written, but it's not illustrated, because I can't draw. I mean, Mom, you've seen me draw. I can't draw to save my life. I do have someone who can draw, which is a friend I've had since kindergarten, and he's done all of my illustrations, and they're just, I love what he does for me. So, but unfortunately, that is his, well, not for, I mean, for him, fortunately, but that is his work. I mean,
right. Yeah, to charge you. Yeah.
Right. And I wouldn't accept it if he didn't. So, I'm going to pay him. And,
right. Like if I gave you like a free pool fence, right? Like who would, oh, wait.
Well, it's not that he hasn't given me free.
I know, I'm kidding. I'm joking.
And I know. But at the end of the day, he's got to put food on his table, and I get that. So, I have to, right. And I have to pay for it. And then even more expensive is printing costs, is getting them printed.
Yeah.
And the volume that I need to print to be able to provide these books to schools. So, for the first one, we raised $21,000, which was honestly just enough then. And that was 8 years ago. And now we're trying to raise $20,000, which is cutting it close, but should be okay. I mean, we have money that we've made from shows and stuff that can kind of buffer that, and that's fine. But yeah, we need to raise $20,000. We are 5 days into the crowdfunding campaign, and we've raised $5,000 already. So
$1,000 a day. Yeah.
Right. So by that metric, you would say, okay, we're gonna, we'll clear the finish line and no problem. We'll have 10 days to spare.
But aren't crowdfunding campaigns funded by 50% for the first and last 6 days?
Yes. So 50% of the funds usually come in the first and last 3 days, actually.
Right.
So the first 3 days, and if I went by that metric, in our first 3 days, we were at about $3,000. So And if the last 3 days made that same amount, that's 6,000. That's not 50%. So I do have some concerns. The scientist and data analyst in me is looking at the data going, this is going to be close. It's a stress that I have OCD. So for someone with OCD, this is the worst possible combination because you're just constantly checking, and I'm constantly trying to think of things I can do on social media and on our website and reaching out to just people. And I'm on my computer all the time or on my phone, just reaching out to people and thinking of things I can post on social media and contacting potential donors. And when I say donors, though, honestly, I don't want donors. I want people who want the book, who say this is a story. And what is different between this book and the last book is that the story's out there.
Right.
I mean, you can see a visualization of the entire story. It's out there, which I don't know, maybe that's a detriment because we live in a visual age and people are like, hey, I'll just watch this. Why do I need to buy the book? Which was always a concern of mine, which I had talked to you before we had even started this. I don't think that's the case, but
no, I think people who are a fan of a thing are more likely to want to see it in another form, right?
Right.
You know, The Witcher did well because we've already experienced the story, right?
Right.
I mean, they're coming out with a Last of Us TV show, and who do you think the people most excited for that are?
The people who already play the games and know the exact story.
Exactly. It's going to be its biggest fans, right? So.
Yeah, and I think that too. And I look at the fact that we've just honestly, the only advertising we've done is on social media and on our Facebook page. And then me personally reaching out to donors, but not people who bought the book, the original book yet. So that's this week. We're going to be contacting. I'm lucky that since most of the books were purchased through e-commerce on our site, I have all the contact info for the people who bought our first book. And I will be reaching out to them and saying, listen, if you like that first book, this one's even better. And it is better. It's better for a couple reasons, because that first book, I had no idea what the heck I was doing. I really didn't. I wasn't an elementary educator. I was a middle school and high school educator. So I think a lot of the verbiage I used in that book was probably a little bit ahead of where like the typical second grader is. My wife has admitted to me that she hates reading that book to my kids because it took too long, because it was long. So I took all those lessons from this one and I really condensed it and used a rhyming scheme in this one, because I noticed that the books that my kids loved the most were the ones that had the rhymes. And it's shorter. And I think it's even got a better point too, because I think it still covers the point of the first book, which is you can do the things to spread that kindness and it'll grow. But now we see the effect of it. So whereas I think the first book is kind of one-dimensional in that way, and that it just shows, here, this is what happens with kindness. This one shows what kindness actually does, the effect of it. And I think the scientist in me appreciates that more. And I know in showing it to schools, and the reaction I get from the kids, and then the teachers, especially afterwards, who just love the message and like, this is great. And they would ask me, can we have the video? And I would tell them no. I was like, well, it's kind of our, but now it's out there. It's out in the wild. So if a teacher asks me now, I'm like, yep, here's the link. And by the way, you can order the book. So, and yeah, so that's where we're at. So $5,000 in. We're 5 days in.
So I was going to use Mike real quick. Oh, anyway. So what can people do?
Well, there it is. Oh, it's covered. I'll move over. Oh, hold on. I got to move the book over. There we go. There's the book.
There's the book. Looks great.
It's next to my head. There we go.
So can we put the link on the screen?
Can we put the link on the screen?
Yeah, if you send it to Mike, he'll put it on the screen.
Yeah, I can do that.
It's so long though. That's the other problem. Like the Indiegogo links are long. I should probably do like a
But is there a link to the website? Is there a link from it on the website?
Yeah, we have. So if you go to respectlife.com, on the Respect Life website, there is a direct link to the crowdfunding campaign.
So maybe I can put the link to Respect Life on the screen. They can remember that.
And then also, if you go to our Facebook page on Facebook or on Instagram, which is at Respect Life, the way we spell it, which is REESSPES. Helps if I could spell it. It's right up there. REESSPECHT. LIFE.com. and you can get the book through there. And by the way, you can order the book. So now the downfall there we go. The downfall is if we don't make the $20,000, it doesn't get made. So it's literally all or nothing. And it has to be by November 29th. So if we don't raise $20,000 by November 29th, it literally just ceases to exist. And everyone gets a refund. Anyone who donated money, it all gets refunded. We don't see a dime of it. And I can go and cry and reconsider my life choices. And I don't know, go back to teaching. Who knows? So, but yeah, so that is what we are doing. That is what I've been working on.
And also, right, if anyone knows anybody in the media or the news who thinks it might be a good story, that Rich, a father who lost his son to drowning, has created this children's book in order to keep the memory of his child alive while simultaneously promoting bullying prevention for kids in a charming and lovingly crafted children's book. I think that's a worthwhile news story that deserves to be spread. So if anyone knows anyone in media, newspapers or TV, or has a blog or a podcast, or anywhere Rich can get the word out, I think that'd be a good thing too.
Yeah, that would absolutely be helpful. I do have a friend who's in the media, and I know you and I had talked the other night, and I'm like, see, it's funny, like what I don't think of, like, oh, you just got to reach out to Jamie because that's what he does, and so I will. But yeah, it's just been, and people who know me know that I tend to take on everything when I take something on. So I will just do it all, like what I can do. If it's within my abilities. Like I can't draw. Like if I could draw, I would illustrate the book myself. I would have gone that far, but I can't, and I just know that I can't do that. So
if you really care, Rich, you would have taken art classes, and you dedicated a decade of your life to.
Yeah. Do you know? I have a funny art class story. My sister's an amazing artist, by the way, but her art's more like I don't know, more contemporary, and like I mean I guess she could illustrate the book if I really wanted her to, but I wouldn't expect. She's got too much on her plate, so that certainly wouldn't be something I would ask her to do. But she got all the art genes. But I remember I had her art teacher in high school, and I remember like me coming in, he was so excited because my sister was such an amazing artist, and I came in and disappointed that man terribly. Like I could not draw. And then the one thing I did do, I remember we had to do a perspective painting. So it had to have something in the foreground and something in the background. And this is just me. My painting or my picture was of a rabbit sitting on a stump. And in the background, an M1 Abrams tank aiming at it. Or what seemed to be aiming at it. And he looked at this and he was disturbed. And I got sent to the assistant principal's office because of my painting of my picture. And when I sat down with the assistant principal, she's like, "What is this?" She's like, "You're trying to be funny." I'm like, "No." I was like, I wanted to show the dichotomy of war, and that, there's this beautiful nature scene and then there's this tank. And if that tank weren't there, you would say, "Oh, this is so beautiful." But there's that tank, and that tank taking away, and it just tells you everything you need. And she's like, "Oh my God, I didn't realize that's what I was like, but that's right. Art's about interpretation, right?" And I said, I can understand how a school would be, concerned that I might be having some violent, but that's not it at all. I just wanted to show that dichotomy. And as I walked out of there, I remember going, I pulled that one out of my mind. No, of course it was me being a little pain in the neck and wanting to be funny. So, yeah, that's my art story.
I wrote a piece one time that we were just talking about the other day, where I talked about how everybody around me were just bleating phantoms, and sheep and worthless, and that I alone understood things and no one got me, and It was this whole thing, this whole manifesto, and I gave it to my English teacher to like, help me, critique on like a, as a on the craft of it, not the content, but how is this as a piece of writing? Like, what can I do to make it better? And yeah, I was sitting in like a counselor's office like the next day, like explaining like, no, I'm okay, like that's fine.
Yeah.
No, I'm not going to.
I can relate.
Yeah,
I can relate. But at least I had an out on mine.
Mine was writing. There's no interpretation. I was just like, no,
I had a total out, and like the assistant principal was like, "Oh my god, I didn't realize how deep this was. Wow, that's really impressive." And I'm like, "Thank God."
Also, she's like, "This kid can't draw."
Oh yeah, because the drawing was terrible. It was. I mean, my rabbit. You'd be lucky to tell it was. I would. When I would do diagrams of things in my classroom, every year when I would teach about plants, trees, and how they get water up the stems all the way up to the leaves, I would draw a tree. And my tree was terrible in the first place. It was a terrible tree. But then I'd always put a little hole in the middle and I'd put a squirrel on the side of the tree. And the kids are like, "What the hell is that?" And I'm like, "It's a squirrel." And they're like, "That's not a squirrel." But yeah. And then I remember when I had surgery back in 2010. And when I had the surgery, I had to go for like a psychological evaluation. It was for weight loss surgery, which clearly didn't work. And I think the psych evaluation was to see if I would actually have my head in the game the right way, which I did, but just didn't really pan out. And the psychiatrist asked me to draw a tree. So I drew my tree that I draw in class, and I put the hole in the squirrel. And then but I drew the roots because that's what I would do when I did the diagram, because I had to tell the kids about how the water gets into the roots. And then she's telling me all this stuff about it, what it's saying about me. And I'm sitting there wanting to tell her, no, I just drew this tree because that's what I draw when I draw it in this class, and I didn't want to think about it. And then she's like, oh, this hole represents a hole in something missing in your life. I'm like, no, it's where the squirrel lives. It's the squirrel's home. Yeah, I'm like, what are you talking about? It's not me. And she's like, oh, the roots show you have deep family roots. I'm like, no, they don't. It's what holds the tree up.
Right, yeah.
And it allows for water absorption. Yeah. And then as I'm saying all this stuff, I looked at her, I'm like, oh my God, it wasn't the picture. It was you were actually after what I was telling you right now. Right? And then she's looking at me, she goes, maybe. And I'm like, now you mess with my head. That's not right. Do you want the picture or do you want what I'm saying about it? And she's like, I've got everything I need. And I'm like, ah. And then she's like, you have OCD. And I was diagnosed with OCD that day.
There it is.
Well, it was also the fact that the pictures hanging above her head were crooked. All of them. And I asked her right off the bat, I'm like, do you do that on purpose? Like, are those pictures crooked on purpose so that people like me can only be fixated on them and have to tell you that your pictures are crooked, you need to fix them? And she's like, I don't really think about the picture, but I realized at the end, I'm like, it was all part of it. It was just all part of their game.
Was it though, or was it just an accident?
I know, right? So deep stuff. You know what's not deep though? The message of my story. It's very straightforward, made for kids.
Okay, it's not even shallow. It's totally shallow. No, it's very good.
And especially, and I will say this, I did write it with educators in mind because I know the problem that we're facing in schools. And let's be honest, we are as a society trending towards something I find very disturbing, in that, bullying behavior and putting people down is now being applauded by certain groups of people. That, oh, look at them, that's so funny, that's great, oh yeah, you put them in their place, you owned them. And that scares me, because you can have a difference of opinion and that's fine, but you start putting somebody down for it, and that just leads, it just escalates. And that's scary. And that we're seeing that escalation. So I know Paul Pelosi, Nancy Pelosi's husband, was assaulted in his home, and then you had people applauding it, thinking that it was funny, ha ha ha. And I don't find that funny. I don't find the direction we're going in this country as a whole funny. That, because kids see it, they see it, and they act on it, and they learn from it. So, got to be the model. That's what I'm trying to do. I've dedicated my life to it. I am trying to get out there to let kids know that their kindness matters, that what we do for other people matters, that we are not isolated on this planet, that we are a part of something bigger, and that it's the little pieces together that make a big difference. And that, how true is that for what I'm trying to do in this crowdfunder? I think a lot of times people think, well, my contribution is insignificant, so why do it? Whereas your contribution is the most significant because it made the difference. So, and you're getting something for it. I'm not asking for a donation. I will give you a book signed if you want. That's a different perk, but I will sign them. I will write custom messages in them. I remember with the first book, I think I ended up signing over 700 books for the first crowdfunder. So I would be happy to sign 700 books this time.
I think it's a great Christmas gift. You should get 10 of them and give them out to your friends and family for Christmas.
Well, no, because it won't be done in time.
In 2024?
Yes, Christmas 2023.
2023?
So,
yeah,
because and that's another thing with the crowdfunding campaign is that some people don't can make that connection. I've had to correct a couple people, be like, "Oh, this will be a great Christmas gift," and I'm like, "No, it won't be." But you can get the original book. The original book, absolutely great Christmas gift. I don't disagree.
So yeah, we can end kindness. We can end cruelty and bullying. We're one book away from changing the minds of a generation,
or at least getting them to think a little bit differently. So
just go to.
I'm not naive enough to think that we can stop these things, and I tell people this all the time. You're never going to stop bullying. Bullying is a natural manifestation of human behavior.
But you might be able to help the people experiencing it, weather it better.
Right, and mitigate it to some degree. I always, the analogy I like to make is like a levee. When the tides rise above a levee and it overflows, that levee didn't fail. It kept the flood from hitting you. And that's what we need to be. We need to be that levee. And too many people now are moving away from that and saying, well, we don't need the levees. And so that's what I see my role as. And no, I'm not going to stop the flood. I'm not going to stop the rising tide. But I can prevent or I can mitigate the damage it creates. And that's what I'm trying to do. And that's important for kids to recognize that, yeah, there's things you can do about it. And there's things you can do to make it better. No, you're not going to solve it. And I think it's incredibly naive and it's really disingenuous for people to come and say you're going to stop bullying, because you're not. You're not. You never will. But you can do things to mitigate it and help make the situation a better one. And my experience has shown me that kindness is that thing. And actually, the data meets it out. So we've got plenty of psychological studies that show teaching kids kindness actually makes kids kind. Go figure. So, and I say this all the time, kids are not born kind. We are actually born selfish, 100%. So babies don't learn to be kind and toddlers don't learn to be kind. Toddlers learn to be kind. They're not kind on their own. They have, that's something they are literally taught. So generosity, kindness, all empathy, all learned. So give us the picture of the book again. Oh, here we go. So there it is. A Little Respect Stops the Bully. A story by Richt Specht Jr., illustrated by Adam D. Smith. Buy it right now. RespectLife.com. Yep. So it's great. It's really good. The story is really neat. You can watch the animation. You can actually watch the whole story of the book in animated form on the Indiegogo page. Yep. And kind of see what you're getting into. But then you'll have a book copy that you can read to your kids and give it to people as a gift. And it's a really nice thing. And the money that it's going to support is for obviously for the book, but the money for the book sales goes towards all the great work that Rich does through his nonprofit, and trying to teach kids about kindness and water safety, and it's all really good stuff. Yeah, we haven't even gotten into the third book, which is A Little Respect for Water Safety, which I've also written.
Right.
But we decided to tackle one book at a time. So this is our first book, and then hopefully, if this is successful, we will move on to getting the second one done. So
And how much is the book?
So they can get just the book right now on the crowdfunder if they just want the book, not signed or anything, no frills, $15.
So I mean, for the cost of some items at Wendy's,
yep,
you can have a lasting memento that can have a permanent impact on a child and maybe a bunch of children. So
and then for just $2 more, I will sign the book for you.
Which I told him was underpriced. I think he should have made it $5 more, and but he's giving that away as a deal, even though.
Right, I wanted to have that there because I think having a book signed by the author is special. So I wanted to entice people to. Listen, I don't mind signing your books. I would like to. So if I can entice you by making it only a little bit more expensive, then by all means. So. And there's all different perks too, by the way. We have business sponsor perks. We will have a page in the book specifically for our business sponsors. There is an overall sponsor of the book who it's already been taken. So
is it
my
me?
favorite pool fences.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah.
So they get the prime spot, and that's right in the front. But in the back, we will have a entire page dedicated to our business sponsors with their contact info, logo, social media contact, all of that. We have a place where you can actually leave a dedication in the book. So I call it Your Name in Print Forever. And you can write a little dedication and have your names in there or your kids' names. We have a perk for $1,000, which we sold 2 of those in the first book. And these 2 kids will be in the next book. So in this book, we have 2 kids who bought the perk 8 years ago. They will be in the book. And we have it now for the next book. So for the Little Respect for Water Safety, we are selling 2 spots for characters to be in the book. And we will turn your child into a character in the next book.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. And then we are currently developing the pilot for our animated series. So I've been having meetings with our animator. It is happening. So the actual pilot is being created. And for $2,000, you can have your child or you, if you want them. And it doesn't matter who they are. We will put them in the book. And
what about my dog?
Or if it's an adult, and they want to be in the book, I will put you in the book, no matter what you want. And you tell me a little bit about you. We'll incorporate your character into the book itself.
What about my Labrador?
I'll put a dog in. Hey, if it were you, I would put you in. Except I think I would give you like the Professor X hover chair.
Fair enough.
So, but yeah, I will put anybody. I mean, obviously there would be some artistic license there, but yeah, that's a big deal for us, and I want to be able to honor people. And then our last perk is our angel sponsor, our angel donor, who just wants to donate because they have the money to do it and they believe in our cause, and that's for $5,000. And if you're willing to do that and believe in our cause, I will be forever grateful for your belief in what we're trying to accomplish here. So, and keep in mind, as Eric pointed out, it's not just for kindness. We do water safety. We do the kindness. It is our mission. Our toy drive, by the way, is starting this week. So our boxes are going out. I'm actually hitting the road tomorrow, delivering the boxes all this week. We have over 60 locations for drop-off locations. We'll have the virtual toy drive online again this year on Amazon, where people can just have toys sent to my house. My Amazon driver loves it. Not really. Oh my God, they stop here every day for the next month dropping off toys, and they're like, how much do you people order? They're like blown away. But it's great. So yeah, all of these things are things that the foundation does, and the book sales are honestly our way of doing it. So we haven't really done fundraising other than this. I haven't had to. The first book, 16,000 copies times $10 a book. It's a pretty good fundraiser. And it's really funded everything we've wanted to do for the foundation. And I'm hoping the next book will kind of do the same. And first step, though, is getting that book out. So we got to get it out into the wild. You can help, and I hope you do.
And I think that perk of your kid being immortalized in a children's book, that's a really cool thing. I think that's
yeah. And I will point out that in the original crowdfunder, those 2 went towards the end. they went last. Or I think the cooler one for me is the animated one, because that'll go on YouTube. I mean, if the series never gets made, that video, which has an important story to tell as well, it's basically a little respect goes a long way. It's a totally separate story from the books, and it's what we're doing on the animated side of things is a little bit removed from the books in that it focuses more on Reese and the anthropomorphized farm equipment. So think kind of like Paw Patrol in a way. So it's a little more fantastical, although it still has the message.
Or Beauty and the Beast.
Well,
because are the candles everything alive?
Yeah. In this case, it's the farm equipment. So there's tractor and there's a bulldozer named Doozy, and there's so those characters are more a part of it. But the antagonist is Mr. Grumpyton, so he's like the Gargamel of the series. But yeah, it's cool. I'm really happy with how things are shaping up for that. But yeah, your kid or you can actually be represented in 3D animation forever. And even if it's just the pilot, you have that. If it goes to series, though, your character could potentially become a character that gets repeated over and over and over again. So.
And there's only 2 of those spots. So, I mean...
No, there's only 1 for the animation.
Only 1. So literally only 1 person is going to get that. If someone beats you to it, that's it. First come, first serve.
Right. Once they're gone, they're gone. So
it is imperative, if you might want this, that you get it as quickly as possible.
Right. The perk for the book character, there's 2 of them, and both of those characters will end up in the next book.
And I'm thinking about doing it. So if you want to beat me to it, let's gotta move fast.
So, and that is it. That's I thank everybody. I thank everyone for their support, for everything we've done, and I hope in 29 more days I get to say, whew, we did it, and make it a reality.
I think we will.
Yeah.
So,
because you're probably not going to like the version of me that failed at this. So
I have full confidence that we're going to figure this out.
I do too. Honestly, though, Eric, I would really like to figure it out before the 29 days so that I can actually take a deep breath and my family can actually not see just the back of my head sitting at a computer screen constantly trying to find people that make this happen. So, but
Godspeed.
We'll see.
All right.
I have to take my daughter to school, so I got to get going.
All right. And will I see you this afternoon for Jeopardy?
No, I will not be around, unfortunately. I know I haven't been able to join Jeopardy in a while. Okay. But I have to run to the hospital and pick up my cousin from his chemotherapy. So,
well, we're thinking about him.
Yes, he's a fighter, and I have faith that he will pull through.
All right.
But that's what family's for. So,
is it? I wouldn't know. Anyways, so we will see y'all next Tuesday, same time, same place. And in the meantime, go to respectlife.com. Buy some books. Buy 20 of them. Or 1, but 20 would be better.
Yeah. Right. Or just donate. You can just donate too.
Or just give money. Yeah, just do it.
Yep.
Help out. All right. See y'all.
All right. We'll catch you next week. Thank you, everybody.
Take it easy.
Bye.